The Ashtavakra Gita is one of the greatest texts that anyone could ever read. Now, this text is what is known as a Nididhyasana text. Now, a Nididhyasana text is a text that one comes across beyond the pale of enlightenment or on the cusp of enlightenment. But most people believe it's a text that we come across beyond the pale of enlightenment. Now, I've covered many videos on the Ashtavakra Gita before, and we will dive into another verse today on the nature of avoiding sorrow and how to remain in the world but not be of it. So, without further ado, one who is attached to the world wants to renounce it in order to avoid sorrow. But one without attachment is free from sorrow and does not feel miserable even in the world. This verse of the Ashtavakra Gita is going into renunciation. Now, when we often think about renunciation, we often think about renouncing the physical world, heading into the mountains and maybe going up into the Himalayas and getting away from society in general. And that does have its purpose. But the Ashtavakra Gita here is saying it's more about an inner renunciation of our attachment to the world, of our projection of how the world should be. And that's what causes a lot of trouble, actually. It's because our jiva, our persona system, thinks that the world should be this or that according to our own conditioning, our own ego, but often it is not according to our own projection. And so we want to escape it then. But on the spiritual path, when you go deeper and deeper into the deeper principles and philosophy and practices on the spiritual path, you realize that it's your attachment to the world that is the problem. Because you are so attached to the world, it causes you sorrow, and you are trying to avoid that sorrow. So in the Ashtavakra Gita here, it is saying that it is not the world that causes you misery, but it is attachment that is the root of all misery, attachment to the world. Now, even a lot of people who say they have renounced the world and have gone up into the mountains still have an attachment to the world in some sense, because they in some sense probably wanted the world to be a different way and went up into the mountains to avoid it because it didn't suit their own personal projections and agendas. And that illustrates a subtle sense of attachment to it. Now, in the Ashtavakra Gita, it is saying that that attachment to the world is the cause of misery itself. So we need to overcome that attachment. This is why within particularly Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism, there's a big emphasis on attachment, because attachment can slip under the door. It's a very sneaky customer. And we may feel as though we aren't attached to a certain thing or the world or a person or an ideology and so forth and so on. But you'll see our actions and our thoughts and the way we view the world will expose the attachment that we have to any of those things that I have mentioned. And so the outcome we are looking for within those three great traditions is to be free from attachment. Now, it's not the world that's the problem. It's your attachment to things that is the problem. It's your attachment to how the world should be based on your own conditioning and your own socialization process that is the problem. If you free yourself from that attachment, it doesn't matter where you live. You may live in the mountains still because you have an affinity with nature, or you may reside in a city because you have a particular job that you enjoy, for example. But you are free from the attachment to where you live, what you do, where your life is going. You are free from that, and that allows you to live life in accord with the essence of Brahman, or the way of the Tao, to use Taoist terminology. So the Ashtavakra Gita is basically saying if you are free from attachment, you can live happily in the world and be anywhere in the world, and the world will not touch your heart because you are free from it. You don't operate from the jiva, the persona system anymore with its conditioning, its agenda for the world. You are completely free from that, and you can live anywhere and be anywhere at any time and be completely free from sorrow and misery because you are free from attachment. Now, that may be easier said than done, but that's part and parcel of the spiritual journey for all of us. And that's the role the Ashtavakra Gita plays. Now you're probably saying, how do I free myself from attachment? Well, that's where the Ashtavakra Gita comes in. That's where you actually need to read the Ashtavakra Gita. And I have a link in the description for the Ashtavakra Gita for those who are interested. And also, I've explained a lot about freeing yourself from attachment in previous episodes of the Ashtavakra Gita series, and in future episodes, we will be exploring that as well. So in the end, to be in the world and not of it depends on how we are attached to the world. Because if we continue to be attached to the world, we will continue to suffer and experience misery. But if we free ourselves from attachment, then we will be free as a bird, and we can move anywhere in life without experiencing suffering according to the attachment we have to the world, to things, to concepts, to ideologies, and even the person we believe we are. Shanti, shanti, shanti.